sometimes in research, we're losing sight of what we're doing because we are so buried into very deep details on very tiny things that sometimes we're forgetting the big picture. Doing that kind of things brings you back to seeing the big pictures, it's also helping you finding cool ways of explaining your research, which is never lost, because when you're going to apply for a grant, when you're going to maybe apply for a job, apply for whatever, you have to explain the project you want to do. And the people in front of you are never going to be in your domain exactly.
Welcome to Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD, your weekly inspiration for post-PhD career development. With me, David Mendes.
When I was watching my lab meetings and I was watching my lab mates presenting their research, most of the times I didn't understand because they didn't give me any context. They were just like jumping hard into details and I was like, what's happening? And I was completely losing the plot of what they were doing. And this is also a way to discover like stuff in your domain in a very cool way. So I would say it's inspiration on how to do. It's relaxing to watch in a cool way science in your domain. But usually what I often advise for researchers or for scientists is to go to events that are not their domain, because then they're going to learn things. If you go to your domain, you might not learn anything. So I think it's the best criticism I got from someone. She was a researcher. She went to a Pint of Science evening, and then she came to me and she was like, well, I didn't learn anything. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. It means it was simple enough. Then she was like, it was too simple. I was like, cool, perfect. Because it wasn't for you to learn something. It was maybe for you to learn a way of presenting, but not for you to learn anything, because definitely you're too advanced for that kind of thing. But I would say, if you go, and it works for any kind of science communication, go for stuff that are outside of your domain, because the beauty of science communication is that you will understand things, and you will get, even if it's, I was really bad at physics to a point that was painfully bad. I think the last grade, so in France we're grading from 0 to 20, and my last uni big grade in physics was 0.5 out of 20.
Oh yeah,
exactly. And when I started science communication, I went to physics night, and then I started understanding it in a way that I was like, if they explained it to me that way in lectures in uni, I would have understood. So it's nice to go to outside of your domain to maybe learn things that are different. And the beauty of science communication is supposed to be presented in a way that you will understand. So don't be scared. Go watch something else.
This brings me to the last kind of, or the third piece of this puzzle of Pint of Science, which is the scientists who are presenting. They're offering something to an audience, but I'm pretty sure they're also gaining something from it. Oh, yeah. Do you have feedback on that?
Yeah, I have lots of feedback. So first, usually they get really, I think they don't realize, but usually they get a lot of step back from their work because they have to explain the whole big picture. And often I hear that actually it's good sometimes to take, the head out of like your work and look at the big picture to be reminded of what you're doing. So often I hear that. Also, when they work on that, they also work on like ways of explaining their research, so they become better at explaining that. So often I hear that. And I think the best thing I heard, it was someone that came to me and said, oh, the team emailed me last year. I didn't want to do Pint of Science. I didn't have time. I was like, it doesn't start well. And then this year they came to my lab, so I didn't have a choice. I said yes. And I was like, it's not going to go well. And then she told me, but I did it kind of like, I felt a bit forced to do it, but it was amazing. And it was one of the first science communication thing I did. And she said, it convinced me to do more science communication because when preparing it, I really took a step back on my work, and it really helped me seeing again the big picture. And it's going to help me when I'm going to have to write grants and everything, because sometimes in research, we're losing sight of what we're doing because we are so buried into very deep details on very tiny things that sometimes we're forgetting the big picture.
Yeah.
And doing that kind of things brings you back to seeing the big pictures. It's also helping you finding cool ways of explaining your research, which is never lost, because when you're going to apply for a grant, when you're going to maybe apply for a job, apply for whatever, you have to explain the project you want to do. And the people in front of you are never going to be in your domain exactly. You know, they're going to be kind of in your domain if you're lucky, or maybe they're going to be very far from your domain, and you're going to have to convince them to give you money, a job, whatever. And learning how to put your research in, in action with all the big picture, the context and everything, it really helps.
It's clear to me, at least, that that point that you just said, that any investment in putting yourself in a situation of science communication, science outreach, is going to have a positive effect for you, even academically, in like grant writing, etc. Being able to change the tone in which you speak about your research, and also be challenged by other people as to how you talk about it, because I'm sure that some of the questions are challenging.
Yep.
And these things kind of contribute to you developing a richer and richer way, but also more effective way of talking about what you do, like leaving out details that are too complex and getting to the point more quickly, etc.
Yeah, and sometimes I think scientists, they don't realize that they are communicators. Posters, article, grants, we spend our time communicating. And sometimes they say, but I'm not a communicator. Come on, you are a communicator. This is what a scientist's job is. It's to do research, but also to communicate a lot about it. So when you start doing science communication, you learn the little tricks that make you better at it. And I think I'm convinced science communication is a good way to also get better at being a scientist.
Thank you for listening to this new episode of Season 6 of Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD. Have a question about this interview? Want to leave a comment about the podcast? Have someone you want to recommend to be interviewed? Go to speakpipe.com/papaphd and leave me a voice note. Just hit the big record button and leave me an up to 90-second message. I listen to all my messages and I consider all of them for feature on future episodes. speakpipe.com/papaphd. Hope to hear from you soon.